It began with a bell that kept ringing after the church was already empty, with doors swinging open in the wind, with boats found half a mile inland, resting in fields where corn once grew. Maps still showed the town's name, but no one could point to where it had stood. By the time the sea was finished, it was as if the place had never existed. In the early 1700s, along the eastern coast of what would become the United States, a small fishing settlement stood between the forest and the Atlantic Ocean. The town was built on sand and timber. It faced the sea because that was where life came from. Ships passed. Nets filled. Smoke rose from chimneys each evening. Few believed the ocean could ever take it all away. The settlement had no official name on most colonial charts. Sailors called it Gray Harbor. A narrow inlet. A strip of wooden docks. 30 houses built close together for warmth and protection. Beyond them, marshland and pine forest. In front, the Atlantic. Life followed tides and seasons. At dawn, men pushed small wooden sloops into the surf. They carried hand-woven nets and iron hooks. The boats were shallow, built for coastal waters. Women salted cod and herring on long racks near the shore. Children gathered driftwood for fires. Smoke mixed with the smell of brine and tar. The houses were simple. Timber frames. Clay chimneys. Shingled roofs weighed down with stones against the wind. Every structure leaned slightly inland, as if the whole town already knew which direction danger came from. Storms were not unusual. Each autumn, strong winds rolled up the coast. The people secured shutters, pulled boats higher onto the sand, waited it out. Afterward they repaired fences and continued. But the sea had been changing. Older fishermen spoke quietly about it. The tide seemed higher than it used to be. Sandbars that once protected the harbor were thinning. Twice that year, waves had reached the lower steps of the church. No one moved. There was nowhere to go. The nearest settlement lay 2 days inland through forest and swamp. Supplies came by ship. The harbor meant survival. Without it, they were nothing. So they stayed. New families arrived during the summer. Word had spread that fish were plentiful. Timber was free. Land was cheap. They built more cabins closer to the water. Closer than the first settlers ever dared. The church bell became the town's center. It rang for work. For storms. For lost boats. In late September, gulls began flying inland in large numbers. Nets returned nearly empty. The air felt heavy. Still. Then one evening, the horizon turned dark before sunset. Not with clouds. With something thicker. The oldest man in the harbor said he had seen that color only once before, when he was a child. He did not explain further. That night, the wind did not stop. It only grew louder. The first storm lasted 2 days. Rain moved sideways. Waves crashed directly over the docks. 3 boats were torn loose and smashed against each other like driftwood. No one slept. Families crowded inside the church because it was the only stone structure in the settlement. When the wind finally dropped, the damage was heavy but familiar. Broken roofs. Flooded cellars. 2 missing nets. They repaired everything. They always did. But the sea did not retreat as it usually had. The shoreline looked different. The beach had narrowed. Several fences now stood in open water. The sandbank that shielded the inlet had collapsed during the night. The harbor was deeper and rougher. The tide reached farther inland. Within a week, another storm arrived. This one was stronger. Boats could not leave at all. Fishing stopped. Food supplies thinned. Barrels of salt fish were soaked with brine and spoiled. Fresh water wells tasted bitter. Arguments began. Some families wanted to leave. Others refused. Leaving meant abandoning homes, tools, and boats that had taken years to build. It meant walking into wilderness with children and no clear destination. The town council gathered inside the church. They decided to stay until winter passed. They believed storms were seasonal, temporary. They reinforced houses with extra beams, tied roofs with rope, dug trenches to redirect water, moved livestock onto higher ground. But every night the wind returned. Smaller storms, then larger ones. The bell rang almost daily now. One morning, people woke to find the cemetery half gone. Graves had collapsed into the surf. Coffins exposed. Bones scattered among seaweed. No one spoke while they reburied what they could. After that, something changed in the town. Silence replaced routine. The ocean no longer sounded distant. It felt present. Constant. Like breathing. By late October, tides flooded the streets twice a day. Children slept on tables to stay dry. The church floor warped for moisture. Salt coated every surface. Still, they stayed. Because leaving meant admitting the town had never truly belonged there. And no one wanted to be the first to say it. Then the sky turned black again. Worse than before. This time, the wind did not come from the sea alone. It came from every direction. The final storm arrived at night. There was no warning bell. The rope snapped before anyone could pull it. Wind struck the town like a wall. Roofs lifted in seconds. Entire walls collapsed inward. Lanterns blew out. Darkness swallowed everything except the white of the waves. Water rushed through the streets as if the harbor had moved onto land. People tried to run, but the ground was already mud. Each step sank. Wagons overturned. Animals broke loose and disappeared into the noise. The church doors burst open. Families who had gathered inside were forced out by rising water. The floorboards lifted and floated. Benches crashed against the walls. Some tried to reach the forest. Others climbed onto roofs. A few clung to boats still tied near shore. The boats tore free anyway. One by one, houses slid from their foundations. Not broken. Not shattered. Just lifted and carried away. As if they weighed nothing. Witnesses later said the sea made no roar. Only a deep, steady sound. Like grinding stone. By midnight, the main street was gone. The well disappeared. The docks vanished entirely. The shoreline had moved dozens of yards inland. A group of families attempted to escape along the tree line, carrying only blankets and tools. They did not look back. There was nothing left to see. When dawn came, the storm had passed. Fog covered everything. Where Gray Harbor had stood, there was only open water and scattered debris. Pieces of timber. A door. A broken net. The church bell half buried in sand, silent. No bodies were found near the shore. Some had fled inland. Some had been taken. No one knew how many. The ocean had erased the count. By afternoon, even the footprints were gone. The people who survived did not become witnesses in the way history usually remembers them. They arrived in other settlements quietly, traveling in small groups along muddy forest paths and shallow riverbanks. They carried what little they had managed to save during the night of the storm. A few blankets. simple tools. A cooking pot. A family Bible wrapped in cloth to keep it dry. Their clothes were stiff with salt and sand. Their hands were raw from rope burns and splinters. Most of them had not slept for days. When they tried to explain what had happened, the words sounded uncertain even to themselves. They spoke about the wind first, then the water, then the houses lifting from the ground as if they had never been anchored at all. They described the church breaking apart and the streets turning into channels of black water. They spoke about neighbors who vanished in the dark only a few steps away. But the story felt too large, too sudden. Listeners nodded politely, yet many assumed the survivors were simply frightened people who had lost more than they understood. Storms destroyed coastal villages every year. Boats capsized. Homes flooded. That was part of life near the ocean. An entire settlement disappearing overnight sounded like something shaped by panic rather than fact. So the story began to soften at the edges. Details changed with each telling. Some said the town had 20 houses. Others said 40. Some remembered a large church. Others recalled only a small chapel. Even the name became uncertain. Gray Harbor, Gray Haven, Harbor Point. After a while, no one corrected the differences. It no longer seemed important. The refugees stopped using the name altogether. They referred to it simply as the old place by the water. Winter covered the coast soon after. Snow flattened the dunes and sealed the ground in ice. Any boards or beams that might have washed ashore disappeared beneath layers of frost and driftwood. From a distance, the shoreline looked smooth and untouched, like an empty page. When spring finally came, the landscape had changed again. The inlet had widened. The sandbars were gone. Water reached farther inland than anyone remembered. There were no ruins left to examine. No foundations. No broken walls. Nothing that suggested families had lived there for years. Ships passing along the coast saw only marsh and low grass. Cartographers updated their charts without hesitation. They drew a simple line where the land met the sea and left the space blank. Trade routes shifted slightly north. Supply boats stopped visiting the area entirely. The harbor that had once supported dozens of lives ceased to exist on paper as well as in reality. Time moved on without resistance. Fishermen sometimes pulled up strange objects in their nets after heavy weather. Pieces of worked timber. Rusted nails. A fragment of pottery. Once, the curved frame of a small window. The items looked old but unremarkable. Most assumed they were debris from some forgotten shipwreck and threw them back into the water. No one gathered them. No one asked questions. There were no official records to consult. The settlement had never been large enough to warrant taxes or formal documents. No census had been taken. No deeds had been filed. Without paper, there was nothing to preserve the memory. Years turned into decades. Grass spread across the higher ground. Marsh plants filled the low areas. Pine trees crept closer to the shore and broke apart whatever remained buried beneath the soil. The land slowly erased the last traces of human order. Paths disappeared. Fence lines dissolved. Even the shape of the coastline continued to drift with every season. Children growing up in nearby towns never heard the story at all. For them, that stretch of coast had always been empty. Sometimes, during an unusually low tide, dark shapes could be seen beneath the water. Straight lines that did not match nature. Old posts or beams arranged too evenly to be random. They appeared for an hour or two and then vanished again under the returning waves, leaving no proof behind. By evening, the surface looked undisturbed. If someone stood there at dusk, they would hear only the steady rhythm of the ocean and the wind moving through tall grass. There would be no smoke rising from chimneys. No voices. No lanterns in windows. No bell marking the hours. Just open shoreline. Open water. And the quiet absence of a town that had once been alive. Thank you for watching. New historical stories are published regularly.